So welcome to another Wargame review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we are finally taking a look at Table Battles from Hollandspiele. And this is the second edition. And Table Battles itself is a system. So when you buy the box, it has the components in it, and it has a deck of cards. The cards have all of the different battles and all of the units. But you buy this core box because it has all of the wooden pieces in it, it has the dice in it, and it has the rule set. This game has like 4 expansions, I believe, on their website, each of which is just a deck of cards. It's more battles and more formations.
So you use the same sticks and morale cubes and dice, you just get more cards.
Yes, you have to have this box before you get any of those expansions. So just wanted to get that out the way. Second edition, nicer pieces, nicer production, nicer cards, and the newest set of the rules. So what is Table Battles? Table Battles is a 2-player, head-to-head, kind of tactical formations fighting game.
With dice chucking.
Yes.
Yahtzee style.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game. So the battles on the back of the box, it's like, battles take 20 minutes. Some of them take a little bit longer, because you're just rolling off and you can get into some dice fest.
Where you can get into that endless loop as well, where one player's defending, the other one's attacking, and you can kind of just get into that loop.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because then somebody's got to break that loop.
Yeah, or you roll poorly, or you then take a gamble and try to do something else outside of that. But it's a very light war game, in the sense that the rule book is like 4 pages.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, too.
Yes.
I mean, it's fairly easy to pick up. I think the difficulty is in reading and understanding what each card can do.
Yeah, making your forces work.
Yes.
There's nuance to it. It's not...
Yeah. It's not just attack everybody. They can attack certain people.
Yes.
They have certain special abilities, certain benefits if they do certain things.
Some people can support some other guys, and the forces are asymmetrical typically. And so there's some really nice little bits of meat and crunch to it.
Yeah.
But it is still a quick playing, very small game. There's no board. You play on a table. It's table battles.
Yeah.
You just have your cards, and then they're basically the hit points, the units. And you're just rolling dice. You assign those dice, and then on a subsequent turn, you then take back those dice to do an action on that card, which is usually attacking. Sometimes there's some other bits and pieces you can do, but you get into the cycle of rolling dice placement, taking them back, doing actions back and forth until one person wins. You win either by a morale victory, and then there's a number of morale cubes in a scenario. If you get them all and they have none, they lose the game. Or if it's impossible for you to attack anyone, in the sense that, you don't have anyone in front of you, and you can't make an attack, you lose. That's it. It's quick and dirty. You play. You might think you're doing really well, and then on a dime it can turn, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
You get hosed. But it's a very small, simple game. It was very, very enjoyable, though.
Yeah, we played 3 times, 3 different scenarios, 3 different periods.
Yes.
And really very different troops. I think each side had some very interesting, unique elements about the way they fought, their abilities. And it's a game where you're mainly trying to figure out how to game the other player. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to force you to maybe do certain things
that you don't want to do, yeah.
So that therefore you can't do what you want to do, and then you got to
exploit that.
Follow that up and exploit it. The issue is that you've got to have the right dice to do that. And it is rolling dice. So you're going to roll 4 to 6 dice pretty much every turn. You're going to take some actions, you're going to roll those dice and then place them again. And there's limitations to how you can place it.
Yeah.
Certain numbers and brackets mean different things. Sometimes it's doubles, sometimes it's triples, sometimes it's a straight, like a 4-number straight. So that's why I mentioned Yahtzee, because that's kind of the way it is.
You're rolling dice, looking at your cards, and like, how am I going to assign these into my armies so that I can trigger their abilities next turn?
Yes.
You know what? It reminds me a little bit of Kingsburg. Do you remember that game?
I do.
I love that game.
Yeah.
I like dice.
It's a Euro game.
I like that dice assignment and rolling those. And here you get this little pool of dice, and you're rolling like, ooh, I can put like 3 5s on that guy. And they're like, I wish I could on this guy, but he's got the bracketed numbers, I can only put one on him.
Yeah.
Or if they're the same color, so I have to choose between those. I've got a pink guy and a red guy, I can assign to both of those. And so there's this really neat little element of that.
Yeah.
But you only have like anywhere from 4 to 6 formations, so it's not like torturous. You do it and you're done. So it goes along at a really good clip.
I did enjoy. I think our first scenario was a American Revolutionary War that only had 3 formations on each side.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that one. I think a little more. Although that English Civil War one was pretty cool, and we each had
that one was big.
5.
It felt much more grand, didn't it?
But I think overall the game, you're not going to go into this and try to out-tactical the other guy. The way you're going to beat that other guy is by doing certain things in a more beneficial order, meaning you have the dice you needed, and that's the key.
But then that's
the tactical,
what translates into the tactical part of the formation fight.
Right.
Which is neat. It's very interesting how a lot of it's abstracted into how that works.
This game is very unique, and it
not
is
anything like it.
I also feel like it's very revolutionary. I mean, the fact that I don't have a board and I'm just using dice and a couple of cards and some matchsticks. Right? These are literally like they're cool.
They're a bit thicker and a bit nicer.
Yeah, a little. But that's kind of what you're playing with. But it all plays out and represents these battles that are going on. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I like how much variety there is.
Yeah.
So the expansions are themed. So there's like English Civil War, American Civil War, Alexander the Great. The boxed edition has this eclectic series of 10 battles.
One of everything, I think.
Yeah,
right?
like there's some Napoleonics, there's some ancients, there's American Civil,
French and Indian War.
I mean, it's got a bunch of everything in it. Mm-hmm. And what's cool to me is you get in one box, you get to see how this system can do the same, the same rules, but it's a totally different setting and it works. Mm-hmm. That's really neat to see that.
Yes.
And how that plays out.
Well, and I think I asked you the question during, I think it was our second game. I said, do you get it? Maybe it was the first game. I asked, did you get a thematic feel of 16th century, warfare? And I think your comment was no, but that was during our first game.
Yeah.
Then I think we went to the English Civil War. And I got more of a sense of theme, and then I started to realize that first game had some theme as well in the way they fought.
And that's it. The theme is it's a very small, kind of almost abstract game.
Yeah.
So the theme is in how the battles play out. Mm-hmm. That's where I find the theme.
Yes.
Because the reality is the difference between these two units.
Yeah,
right.
It's just numbers.
There is, based on what dice you roll, but and how many hits they might be able to do, but the difference between that and those same numbers in a different setting, it's kind of the same thing. But it's kind of the overall how the battle plays. So that first one we played in the American Revolutionary War, I think it was Grant and the Hessians were trying
the evil Hessians.
The vile.
It was mentioned that the vile Hessians. Yeah,
they're trying to do this holding action, waiting for Clinton with this huge army to come up and to clean out the colonials, and that's how the game ended. And so the theme is how it works. And this when we played with that final battle in Pompeii, it was the end of the Roman Civil War, and it was
Caesar versus Pompey.
Caesar springs his trap after the cavalry rout. And they come in and they smash the right flank of the Pompeians, and that's what happened. Mm-hmm. So the theme is there a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's. I'm not going to pretend like it's dripping in theme. It's
right.
It's cards and pieces.
Yep. Agreed.
But the battles play out in a way that is interesting, and you can see that it is representative of something that could have happened.
Well, and if you know the history, I'm not saying I'm a Roman historian, but I've watched some documentaries on this, and. Yeah, that they did use that fourth line like that, where they came in and man, it was over. He swept everything, and that's just the way it is. So the game was set up to allow that to happen, but only if you really wanted it to. But you and I talked about that. That was an easy victory point for me. Not a victory point, a morale point.
Yes.
I really had to do that, kill those horses, because they were weak, because I needed that morale cube to then try to then wipe out Mark Antony and win the game.
Yes.
But if I hadn't done that, I think you would have moved it up, and then it would have been even harder.
I could have retreated them, denied you that, stuck in my fourth line, and then smashed away.
So that's where the theme or the historical flavor comes in, I think. The other thing that I really enjoy about the way the system works is the different abilities that everybody has. Screen, you can stop someone from attacking.
Yeah.
And it's like artillery and horsemen. There was also some absorption, like a unit to your left could kind of take away some of your hits. Very cool. Very nice element.
Yeah, which keeps these guys alive.
Yep.
Who are worth
better.
More morale points, so you can't afford to lose them.
You're like, I'm going to take those hits. The other thing, counterattacking, was very cool.
Yes.
I also really enjoyed the asymmetry of, for instance, your Caesar units did 1 hit plus 1 per die.
Which was very, very strong.
Very powerful. I didn't have that. But I had some other neat things that kept me in the game. And had I got a roll here or there, I might have been able to break through and win that one. But I love that asymmetry. I will also say this about the game. One thing I didn't like.
Okay.
There's so many special rules and instances on all the cards.
Yeah.
You've really got to be familiar with it. And you've not only got to be familiar with your own, you got to kind of know what your opponent can do.
Yeah, and it's in the sense that each game has probably anywhere from 8 to 10 cards.
So there's not a ton.
And before we'd kind of review, what do your guys do? What do my guys do? Who can attack who? You kind of review it beforehand. I guess if you played this a lot, you'd kind of get that down.
Yeah, you would. Maybe, I think through playing it more. But
I know what you're saying.
10 different scenarios. That's like 50 different cards.
Like I'm attacking you, and you're like, oh, I counterattack it, and do +1 hit, and deny you hit. You're like, oh, I wouldn't
do that then.
Like, yeah, okay.
But I just forgot. You know. So that was a nitpicky, but that's the way the game is. It's designed that way, and it's okay. The other thing I think I struggled with, and I'll go back to the English Civil War. Mm-hmm. I really crushed your right flank. I think I destroyed 2 of your major guys, and then all of a sudden I look down at my thing and I'm like, oh, my entire 3 guys on the right side can't do anything now. It's like you can't attack across the battlefield.
Yeah, like those guys have won the day in this wing, but now they're useless.
Yeah, which is okay because there's no one to fight, but you had some cards, Cromwell, who obviously is very, very powerful.
He can just go pick those guys off.
He can attack anybody.
You can do nothing about it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wouldn't say that I didn't like that. I would say that I got a plan for that better.
It's a very different tactical situation than any other game. Because in any other game, if you had that, you would get all this flanking stuff, you'd swing around, and the game would be over.
I'd come over and crush you, and I would have rode them down like grass.
And I do wonder if that's there to kind of simulate that you're chasing those guys down, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? But it was definitely like, this is a design choice that's been made, and it's an interesting one.
The other interesting thing is we played this 3 times today. I went first every time. I was, in essence, the person who had initiative. And I ended up losing all 3, so I'm sitting there going, is that a pattern?
And I think the first player is more of the defender.
Okay.
From what I could gather.
Based on the disposition of the cards and the battles?
I think so.
Okay.
At least with Caesar, he was attacking Pompey and his army.
Right.
He was actively doing that. And then the first one, that was the same situation in the Amrath battle. I don't know. I can't remember with the second one. But I think they make you go first. You can roll your dice, set up some defensive stuff.
Yeah.
So that when I roll, you've at least got a chance to have got some screens set up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. The defender lost a lot.
Yeah, it was just interesting. And once again, we'd have to play it 8 or 10 times to really see if that's a pattern. But maybe it is. I don't know. But lots of stuff to like here. I don't know that everybody's going to like it. I think there will be some that will look at those negatives that I talked about, and that will really bother them.
I do think everyone should try it, though.
They should, because I think it's fun.
And I think you will not play another game like this.
No, definitely.
So I think that is a big credit. Give it a go.
Yeah.
It might not, but it's a small little game. If you don't like it, it's no big loss.
Well, and it's also a very affordable game. I think it's $35 on the website, and the expansions are $25 or $20.
Just 20, yeah. And it's just a deck of cards with 6 to 8 battles.
Yeah, and this would be a game that you could play, I think, with your children. Might be harder as they're younger, but 10 or 12, I think they could pick up on this.
Yeah.
I think a spouse could easily. They're not interested in gaming at all. I think they could follow this. And
it's not a complex game in a rule standpoint.
No.
Not even a little bit. What I'll do is I'll show you the board, and then we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So here's a look at the game. This is why it's called Table Battles, because it's just a few components. You don't have a set board or anything like that. Just play on the side of a table, it's no big deal. This is probably a smaller sized battle. There's 3 cards on each side, 3 different formations. Some of them go as many as 6 or 7 on each side. But this is probably about as small as they particularly get. So this is the Battle of Bosworth field. This is End of the Wars of the Roses. This is Henry VII against Richard III. Big pitched battle, of which there's been many a film and many a Shakespearean play made. Well, just the one. So how does the game play? Well, if you look at the different cards, each of them, so we get a blue side and a red side, right? That's the first thing to note. Then they have the name of kind of what the formation card represents. And, I mean, there's tons of different battles in this, from, like, ancients to Napoleonics and beyond. So, these can represent any different number of things of what it says. They have a strength value, which indicates how many of these pieces that it's effectively their hit points, if you want to think about it that way. So there's 8, which is a lot. 2, this is not very much. Something like 4 and 3 up here is a little bit more average. Then they have these numbers, and these are the numbers that are used on the dice that you'll roll to activate their various abilities. And I'll explain a little bit more here in just a second. And then down here it explains what their different actions are. So this one can do an attack, or it can do a counter-attack, if it was so inclined. And it tells you what that means when you do it. So when Oxford attacks, they do 1 hit per die that you spend, and you do 1 damage to yourself. So they've got a lot. They'll do a lot of damage if you use them well, but, there's also some attrition that they'll do to themselves. These guys, for example, just do 1 hit when they attack. And it also tells you the target for which they can attack. And you start with the left-hand side, and you have to keep attacking these guys until these guys are gone. And once those guys are gone, then you can turn your attention to these guys. So what that does is that models a bit of the your kind of battle lines, and you're engaged with someone, and obviously you can't divert your attention to someone else until you've completed eliminating what's in front of you. Basically, this is a game where you roll your dice, you assign them to whatever it is that you can and want to do, and those dice are used to take actions which are listed on the card. So it is not a complex game mechanically, and you can figure out your options, but there's some bits and pieces to think about based on what you roll and where you assign your dice and how you use them. And there's a nice couple layers of strategy in this, but the games really only take 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, for some of the longer ones, at most 25 minutes kind of a thing. So basically, on your turn, you roll your dice, and there's 6 each, and you assign them to the card. So we'll start here. Let's see, who's got the first turn? First player is House of York. So we got King Richard III, Richard of York. He gave battle in vain. So he's going to roll his 6 dice. And the way a turn works is you take your actions first, then you roll your dice. So the first turn, you don't get to take any actions. You're just basically setting up what you want to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to collect your dice of what you rolled. Oops, that was a 4. And we're gonna then consult our cards and what we want to do with them. So there's the first rule for assigning your dice is you can assign dice to as many different colors of formations that you have. So the blues only have this standard blue formation. If they had some of these darker blue ones, you'd be able to assign dice to one dark blue card and one light blue card. So they can only assign dice to one card. So we've got 2 4s, 2 6s, a 1 and a 2. And this is where we're looking to match these dice numbers to these big numbers listed here. So the 1 and the 2, they're useless to us. So we'll just set those aside. Those can't do anything. What we can do is we can either put these 2 4s on this card or on this card. Or the other option we have is we can put the 2 6s on this one. But because these are all the same color, we could not do, for example, this or this, because these are both the same colors. So we got to make a choice. Do we want to stick them on Norfolk, who then could use them to do an attack on Oxford over here? We'll start whittling down this large number. Or we could stick them on 4. Oh, he's in reserve. My bad. This guy has a 4. He's going to be attacking Oxford. So really, we're going to be fighting this big stack. These kind of are in the front line. These are kind of in the back line. It's kind of how you have to view that. And the abstraction of that is the important part. What we will do is, I think we'll put them on this dice. We can put 2 dice here. If we had a 5 and a 6, what we could not do is put both values down. We can't do that. You can only put one number down, but you can put as many of that number down as possible. So if we rolled 4 6s, we could put all 4 6s on there. And then when we attack next turn, it's 1 hit per die. That's really good, if you can get lots of the same ones. There are some cards in this game that restrict that. So for example here, for the Catholic League foot, obviously this is Wars of the Reformation, they have a bracketed 6. What that means is you can only ever put 1 die on here per turn. So it's slow. Some of those cards you have to build up slowly, some of them you can just stick a bunch on there, no big deal. Why we're going to put them on here is also because we can do an attack, but we can also screen any enemy attack. That's a defensive capability, and we have to have a pair to be able to trigger this. We're going to pair of 6s, so this gives a bit more versatility with what we can do. But because we take our actions first, then we assign the dice, basically York's turn is done with. So then we go over to the Lancastrians, and we'll talk here about the reserve real quick. That's one thing I hadn't mentioned. So the only active units are these ones. These ones they say in reserve, and this one says in reserve. And that's why I kind of put these sideways, just to remind myself of that, which I then forgot. So these guys can only come in, it says in reserve commanded. This is in reserve commanded as well. Basically, these guys come on in replacement of other units. When some guys rout, or when we can withdraw them, these guys can come in when they're commanded to do so. So, you know, you might lose a bunch. You know, if you lose 3, you've got 1 left. You're like, okay, we'll withdraw and bring these guys out, and then you can use those as well. What's important here is for the Stanleys. They're a different color to the red, so they could have. I can roll 6 dice. I can assign some to Richmond, and I could assign some to the Stanleys because they're a different color if and when these guys come out. And usually this stuff is kind of historically based. These guys joined the battle after sitting on the sidelines and seeing who was winning, and it was basically a decisive move by them to join the House of Lancaster when they saw that they had the upper hand, were probably going to win. They wanted to be on the winning side, and in doing so they tipped the balance to its entirety. What we're going to do then is these guys are going to roll their 6 dice and assign them as well. So we roll out 6 little green dice, and just like we did before, we're going to assign those. Gosh, we rolled very poorly though. We have 4 2s, which are entirely useless. I could put them on here if these weren't in reserve. When they're in reserve, you can't do anything with them. So all these dice are wasted, and I have 1 4 and 1 6. So this is where we're gonna. So we can pull the Stanleys out of reserve if we have a full house. Yeah, we're not going to do that. Same thing with the Northumberland Reserve. And that's the thing. This one says in reserve commanded. You have to do the command action to bring them out. Some scenarios and formations, when they're in reserve, it says in reserve brackets and has the name of a formation. When they're dead or when they retire, then they swing in. So there's a few different options, and it's little neatnesses like that that really change how each scenario plays out. So, gosh, we're going to put it on the... We'll put it on Oxford. There's no reason not to at this point. No, we're going to put it on here. We're going to put it on here because if I just have one die, one hit per die and one self, that's a really bad and inefficient ratio for taking hits. Here I can just do the one hit by spending one die. So that's what we're going to do there. And then it goes back to York's turn. And this is where we start getting into the real cycle. So they're going to take an action, and then they're going to roll the dice to the left. So when you take an action, you spend your dice, and you take all the dice off. So even if I had 4 dice on here, which I don't know why I would ever have that, I wouldn't put them on there, you take all of them off, and you do one hit. So that would be very bad, don't do that. Here, you take all your dice off, and we do one hit per die, so that's where you do want to load them up with dice, and one self per action. So we take 2 dice, we do 2 damage, and again, you do it to the first one in this attack line. So we do 2 damage to Oxford, these just get removed, and 1 to myself per action. So yep, we're done with that. Then all the dice that are in my pool, which is all 6 of them, roll them and assign them. And, oh boy. 1, 3. So full house, we'd have to have 3 4s and 2 5s. That's not good. That's going to be very hard to do. Wow, we ended up with pretty bum rolls again. So we're going to just do the same thing. We're going to put 2 6s on here, and these ones are going to be in reserve. Then it becomes to the Lancaster's turn. We're going to spend 1 die to do 1 hit to Norfolk. So we just do 1 hit to Norfolk, and then we roll all of our 6 dice. And we rolled better. Still not ideal. Yikes. So we're going to add the 2 6s here. That's probably not great. We'll do it. And then these are going to be used next time. And then it flips back to this turn. We're going to spend the 2 6s again. We're going to do 2 hits to Oxford and 1 hit to ourselves. And this is where your choices get very limited, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so dangerous. Maybe I shouldn't do that. But at the same time, that's what we're doing. And then what we can do here is instead of waiting for our turn to attack, I can just do this counterattack action. On kind of as part of their action, I can spend the 2 dice. I needed to spend 1 pair, and an enemy. I do counterattack, enemy attack. I do 1 hit to them extra. Boom. So they took 2 losses and I took 2. These guys rout off the board because they got no hit points left. At which point, the Yorkists have 2 morale points, and the Lancastrians have 1. So one of these gets passed to them. If one player has all 3, they win the game. And this changes. Sometimes it's just like 2 cubes. Sometimes there's 5. The number of cubes is based on the scenario as well. Now, we're going to finish doing our little turn here. And we're going to assign all of these. So now we really desperately need to get a full house on here. Because if we don't, it's going to be a hard time. But we rolled really badly, so we're just going to stick a 4 on there. That's literally the only thing that we can do. And the rest of these are no good. Because these guys took an action, even if they had other dice assigned, they would not be eligible to take an action because they did that reaction as part of the counterattack. So that doesn't matter anyway because they don't have anything. So we're just going to roll the 6 dice and effectively forego your proactive turn. And we have also not great. Wow, I'm just rolling really poorly. we're going to do... I'm going to put 2 4s. Oh. Yeah. Great. I'm going to put 2 4s on here. Partly we'll be able to do an attack if we're desperate, but going for that full house aspect there. But every time I'm doing that, I'm really not doing big attacks that maybe I should be doing. But that's what that's how you're gonna play it. Then it goes back to their turn. We're gonna do 1 hit per die, 1 self per action. So this is the point where maybe I would forego my attack and say, no, not gonna do an attack, just gonna kind of play defensively, roll my dice. And we're going to stick, and this is where the numbers become important. I can't put both of these on there. I can only put one of them on there. So they're going to be done with that. Then it passes to these guys' turn. I could do 1 hit to King Richard, so we'll just start whittling them down. We spend 2 dice, but we can only do 1 hit, so we do 1 hit. Great. And then then we're going to roll the dice. And we roll 2 5s, which are useless. And we've got 2 3s. So put the 2 3s back on here. I'm going to put the 2 5s on there and do the 2 damage and the 1 to myself. And this is where the choices get interesting. Do I try to get these guys on, or do I just try to finish them off, right? Then it comes to their turn. If I do 1, I could do 1 hit per dice and 1 to myself, but then that's going to lose me the game, because as soon as it's their turn, they'll do 1 hit per dice and 1 to themselves, and they'll win. So I'm kind of in an untenable position here. I have to try and go for the full house at this point. So we got to roll, and we rolled... Oh, it's not great. We're going to stick the 1 4 on there. We need to roll 2 5s next time, so I'm not going to do anything else. And then we've got their turn... they'll probably just suck it up and do the 2 hits and 1 to themselves. And I think that's the game. Oh, they go, well, I guess and it's the roll that's important. Oh, wow. And so this is where things get interesting. Well, that's not true. So we've got 4 4s. We'll just stick them all on here. Because we can't use any of those dice on there, so we'll stick them all on there, and then we're basically forcing these guys. I'm going to lose the game as the Yorkists. There's just not enough time, because I'd have to do the action to get these in now, and I can't do it. But if I attack, I'm going to kill myself, and the game's over. So that's how this game works, right? We'll just play it out. Let's say I either do an attack, I do 3 hits to them, which is nice, right? But then I'm dead, and the game's over, because I don't have any active forces left. These guys can't come in, right? So it's a very neat, small little game, and the scenarios are very fragile at times. What that means is you get into this back and forth, and then it can escalate really quickly, and like a house of cards, your formations just collapse in on themselves if you misplay things, or if a dice roll doesn't go in your favor. But that's like a whole game, and it took, 15 minutes, and that's me explaining everything. There's not a lot to it, pieces and mechanically speaking, but each individual line of what an attack does, who you can attack, maybe any, needing dice or pairs of dice or full houses for these cards. All the nuances of these cards make the situations very different and very interesting, and decisions become very poignant because one wrong decision can really hose you in this one. So that's how the game works, and what we'll do is we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So that was a look at the playing pieces.
The disposition of forces on your tabletop.
Yeah.
No map.
But it's a
no terrain.
very small little game. You can play this anywhere. You could take this anywhere.
It would be a fantastic game to take on a vacation or an outing. Yeah, I like that element of it a lot.
And I think the expansions, there's Gettysburg, English Civil War, Wars of the Roses, and the Battles of Alexander.
Okay.
So thematically, it's fairly wide range as well, and you kind of get a really interesting mix of ones in here that aren't covered by those. So you can kind of pick what you want. If you're more of an Ancients guy, there's an Ancients expansion, right? You can play just that. Or you could be a completionist, which I know a lot of you are.
Yeah.
And get them all, that's fine.
That's why wargaming companies are in business, right? People buy everything of a series or a line. We all do it.
A Hollandspiele will welcome all completionists.
Yeah, right.
But, the game can be basically what you want it to be
Yeah.
with expansions. I know that it's very easy, printing-wise, to make more. I know that they constantly, Tom's designing more scenarios and printing more scenarios.
Right.
And things like that. So there's a decent amount to it already, and there's a lot more coming in the future, I think.
Yeah.
They just released Dinosaur Table Battles.
Which is this just prehistoric, not historic, but it's prehistoric,
Yes,
right?
we have it right
And
here.
it looks so cool.
That's coming up next.
Yeah.
But, it's a really cool little system.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I like from it. If a scenario is imbalanced, or I play particularly poorly, or if my
15
dice rolls
minutes, you're
are
done.
garbage, it was 20 minutes,
Yeah.
25 minutes, set up a different
Yep.
one, switch sides.
Yep.
It's really easy to do that.
Yeah.
But the game makes you think.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy in a game.
Well,
It engaged me.
Yes, it was so interesting. We first play it, and we're always that type where we throw the game out there and we just try it really quickly to understand the rules.
Yeah.
But, we're playing, we're rolling the dice, and, how many times did I have to say to you, I'm sorry I'm taking so long, but I'm trying to run through the options in my head. If I do this, you are forced to do this, and if I do this, you can't do this, and what's better for me, and what are the chances of you rolling the dice you need?
Yeah.
So I like that, because once again, it harkens back to strategy. You have to put a strategy, or at least some form of an approach
some form of
together
direction.
to make a game. I enjoyed that a lot. It made me think. I think that was a great comment by you.
Yeah, it's that. And I remember in that very first game we played, we both sat there and it was like, okay, if I attack here, it's going to pop your screen here, which means that I can attack with this guy on here next time. I can absorb a loss from you attacking me if I ignore them. And then you're like, and that's all dependent on if I roll good dice.
Yeah, right.
Well.
I still got to roll doubles on
So
4
you're
dice.
going through this, you're like, just roll the dice and then do it.
And the other interesting thing is, that needing to roll doubles or whatever, needing to roll 2 dice, or hey, I need 3s because that's what this unit needs. It's all easier when you have all 6 dice.
Yes.
It's a lot easier when I've got all 6 dice. But you know what? If I've got 2 dice on this guy because I'm trying to force you to think about something else, and I've got 1 die over here, all of a sudden I'm only rolling 3 dice.
And it's very hard to get what you want.
It's very hard to get doubles. So that's also a very interesting struggle in that economy.
Yeah.
Keeping some dice out to hold you, but also keeping enough dice back to get what you need. Just really a fascinating exercise. I think Tom Russell's an evil genius.
Well, this one...
He really is.
Yes. He's a vile Hessian. No.
Yeah.
It was... I don't know. I enjoyed it. And just from you saying that, I'm thinking back, I'm like, I guess that's where some of the theme of the units comes out.
Yeah, it does.
Thinking about those... we had those cannons.
Yes.
In that Amrev game.
Which was the best part of the game for me. I really enjoyed that unit.
You can put any pair of doubles on there.
Yeah.
And if you're rolling 6 dice, it's really easy to do that.
I sometimes got two pair of doubles.
And you sit there and you're like, I'm invincible. I can defend, but you will never win a game doing that.
No.
Because you have to go on the offensive.
Yep.
And that's some of the really interesting theme.
It's the nuances with that.
With these ancients, boy, it's really hard to get those dice out. You don't have the reliable big weaponry, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there is some nuance to that too.
And following on with that, and I feel like I'm getting excited as I talk about this because I'm thinking back to the fun we had.
It's a good game.
But that concept of if I'm doing defensive tactics, it puts me out of position to be offensive.
Yes.
Therefore, after I use defensive, I can only roll dice next time. I can't take an action.
Which keeps you on the defensive.
Yes, and that's what it feeds that strategy. And it's kind of like a never-ending loop.
It can be, yeah.
I got to get out of it. But you know what? If I get out of it, then I lose the game because you're going to kill this guy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a significant loss to then take back the initiative to do some big counterattacks, and then to like, and then I'll be on the defensive, and then I'm in the same position. I'm like, I got to defend.
Well, and that was so that pendulum of being on the offensive, being on the defensive. It was interesting to see your play style versus when you had the offensive.
Yeah.
That was very interesting, and you saw the same thing with me because I was defensive as heck. With a couple of because I was the defender.
Yes.
So I was using those. I don't know. That is a really fascinating, that pendulum of action. I really liked that.
And I don't know if we just don't play those kind of games very often where it has that.
Yeah.
But this game, that feeling was so strong. Where
Yes.
it's like,
I
am the attacker.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is attacking because I have to keep that pressure on you.
Yeah.
And if you don't attack, immediately you become the defender.
Yep.
Because you're just waiting to pounce. And I'm like, oh great, I'm the defender now.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is defending. Because if I don't defend, I will lose.
Yep.
It's so rare that a game flips from like 1 to 100 immediately like that in one turn. And will stay that way. And you're like, oh, I gotta get it back.
Yeah.
It's so many, you get these ebbs and flows. Here it's like, it's like,
really interesting. Once again, I'll say it. Tom's an evil genius. This is a very interesting design.
Yeah, but it's short, right? It's really easy for a lot of these to like, oh, you get a bad roll, I'm dead, the game's over, it's going to collapse. It's very easy for things to go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But that helps to keep the game short and you just play again. It's not a game where you're just going to play it once. So you can play it a few times.
I would also say about this game, I think it came out, in 17?
I don't...
17 or 18. That's a second edition, so it's...
Yes, this is 2016, 17, and 20.
So we didn't play it in 2016.
No.
I don't think we even knew Hollandspiele existed until late 2016, just because they were a new company coming on.
And we were new wargaming.
And we were new, but man, had we played this game when it came out, it would have been on a lot of our lists.
Yeah.
I guarantee, maybe it wouldn't have been the top spot, but it would have been in that top 8 or 10
But there's no one I wouldn't play this with. There's no one I wouldn't recommend this to.
I would agree. I would agree.
I've got a copy of it. If you're interested, let's play.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really simple game to learn.
Yeah.
But there's some thinkiness to it, but nothing overwhelming.
And there's also, you got to be willing and able to do some things and take some chances. I think that's the thing I struggled with, and I'm usually the aggressive player. But I struggled because of the way the units were what I had. So if you're not I don't know, that's going to be a struggle for some. But that's cool. It's a different way of playing a game, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you take a gamble here or there, and like if you get a payoff, it's like elation, and if not, it's over. Okay.
It's got to be like a calculated gamble, though. You can't just give the farm away. No. But very interesting. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, so I appreciate you guys. This is Table Battles. Again, second edition, comes in a nice box, all the great stuff. Table Battles from Hollandspiele. Mm-hmm. This is a big thumbs up from me.
I agree. I would play this with anyone at any time, and I'd be very interested in us getting the other expansions too, just to try out.
I'm going to be on their website
battles
right now.
Yeah, so very cool.
I would take this to a con and play it with anyone.
Absolutely.
I probably will. Next year, we'll take it and just because you just sit down at a table with anyone.
Well, and it's so portable. You don't even have to take the box.
No.
Just put it in a knapsack, and you got everything you need to play the games.
And a little baggie with the wooden pieces
the dice
and the dice.
Yes, pretty simple.
Put it literally in your pockets.
Yeah, very portable.
So, appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Alexander from PlayersAid.com.
And I'm Grant.